Hey everybody, this is Christy. Welcome to my channel. In this series, we are talking about quilting with your domestic machine on a small quilt frame. This is part 2, connecting your machine.
All right, next let me tell you a little bit about how this works with the sewing machine, or really with any sewing machine. So first of all, you can see that I have this wooden carriage with wheels. I know it's a little hard to see in this picture, that's holding my sewing machine. Now what you can't see, and I can't get you to, is that behind the machine, I do have the power cord plugged into a wall outlet that's immediately behind the machine, underneath that window in the background. The sewing machine does have a fairly long power cord, which is helpful. If you're thinking about this and thinking about using your current sewing machine, you may want to check how long your power cord is, figure out how close your nearest power outlet will be, and make sure it's long enough. It needs to stay plugged in while you move the machine from one end of the bed all the way to the other end. So, I mean, that if you have a queen, large size frame, I mean, that could be 8 feet from one end to the other. So if you don't have a power outlet right in the middle, you might want to look and see if there's a longer one available, or for a secure extension cord that you can use. So next up, you'll see that there are 2 ways you can hook this up. I don't currently have a presser foot attached to my sewing machine, but that is an option on this older style carriage. That I don't have all of the pieces installed. There's a few additional wood pieces that could be installed at the top, above this top piece up here, which would let me put the presser foot on top of the sewing machine, and there's some mechanism like a lever I could use to push down the presser foot, so that as I'm moving the carriage, it would then power the machine. I do not use that. Instead, when I purchased this machine came with what's called a quilter's cruise control. That would be this kind of gray box over here. Gray box has a couple of cords plugged into it. Those cords, even if you're close, and no, you can't see this, but let me see if I can explain it to you. Some of the cords go to the wheels on the carriage. There's one right here, and one on the back of the machine. So one side attaches to the wheels that move forward and back. Another cord off of that gray quilter's cruise control attached to the wheels that move left and right. Those 2 sets of cords determine how fast the sewing machine is moving, which then drives how fast it needs to move the needle. So, for example, if I'm driving very, 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 very quickly, then it's going to want to stitch very, very quickly in order to maintain a reasonable sized stitch and to not break a needle. And if I'm going slower, then we want the stitching to be a little slower. So those sensors on those wheels control the speed. It's very similar to when you step harder or slower, or harder or lighter on your pedal when you're sewing. Then one of the cords here, if you can see it, this one goes up and around, and it actually plugs in on the back of the sewing machine where your foot normally plugs in. Other pieces that I have, this particular sewing machine has, on my regular foot pedal for it, it has a button I can click to trim the threads. Very handy. That's a separate plug on the side of my sewing machine. So I actually have kind of a separate sensor. And I actually should, it's not attached. I just have it kind of looped over. There's some double-sided sticky tape that I've never decided where I like it. But really, there's just this button here. This little button is identical to that foot pedal button, and it just plugs into the back of my sewing machine in that, thread cutter slot. And when I click it, it trims the threads. So that's awesome. The other cord that I have here goes to this button This particular one, it's just an on-off switch. So my whole machine is powered off right now. So I can click it. It's literally just a switch that turns the machine on and off altogether. Again, I could tie this on. I kind of switch which hand I hold it with. So I tend to hold on to it with one of these handles and kind of have the button handy. But sometimes I want my left and sometimes I want my right. So I kind of leave it free so that I am free to move it around. Now this particular setup is older. I did mention that this whole machine is new to me a few years ago, and it had been used for quite a while, as far as I understand, prior to that. I don't know if the current version of the Quilter's Cruise Control still has the same exact look and feel. This one's got a fair amount. We had to do some repair. My husband and I had to do some repair work on the cords to get it up and going when I first bought it. So newer ones might be a little nicer. But if you're buying a used one or inheriting one from somebody, yours might be very similar. Let's see, what else do we have here that I could share? Other things that probably look a little strange. These black arms here. There's one on both sides of the machine. Those are like stabilizer bars, so that as I'm driving the machine around, it's not tilting back and forth. We don't want no rollover crashes with your sewing machine. They're adjustable. They look kind of funny, but they get the job done. Yeah. All right. So that's the machine and how it's set up. So let's talk about loading and unloading. And I'm going to pause for a second and get a better view so you can see what all of the poles are.
If you like this content, please like and subscribe to help support my channel. And please consider buying me a coffee. See my link in the description box below.